Saddam Hussein, a name that once held power over millions, a man whose rule shaped Iraq for decades. Some saw him as a dictator, a ruthless leader. Others viewed him as a protector of his nation, a man who stood against Western influence. But no matter how history remembers him, his final moments tell a different story, one that even his enemies never expected. What really happened in the last few hours before his execution? What did Saddam say in his final moments? And why did the American soldiers, his captors, shed tears? Stay with me until the end, as we uncover the truth about the final moments of Saddam Hussein. It was the night of December 29, 2006. Saddam Hussein, once the powerful president of Iraq, was now a prisoner. He had been held in an undisclosed location for years, waiting for his fate to be sealed. That night was different. The guards around him knew it. The air was heavy with anticipation. The time for his execution was approaching. Saddam, however, seemed undisturbed. He sat on the small bed in his prison cell, quietly reading the Quran. His fingers gently moved across the pages, as if searching for peace in the verses. The American guards, stationed outside his cell, observed him. They expected fear, they expected anger, but instead, they saw something completely unexpected: calmness. One of the soldiers later recalled, "He wasn't like other prisoners. He didn't plead, he didn't curse. He just sat there reading. It was as if he had already accepted his fate." The hours passed slowly. Midnight came, then 1 a.m., then 2 a.m. Saddam barely spoke. Occasionally he would close the Quran, sit back, and look at the ceiling. What was going through his mind? Was he remembering his days as a ruler? Was he thinking about his family? Or was he simply preparing for what was to come? As dawn approached, the prison guards entered his cell. It was time. They informed him that his execution would take place within the next few hours. Saddam nodded. He did not protest. He did not ask for mercy. But he had one final request. "I want to take my Quran with me," he said firmly. The guards looked at each other. They were unsure if such a request could be granted. But after discussing it with the higher authorities, they agreed. And so, Saddam Hussein was allowed to hold his Quran in his hands as he was escorted out of the cell. The corridors were cold and silent. The only sound was the slow footsteps of the guards escorting him. Saddam walked with his head held high. His posture was straight, his face calm. Not once did he look back. The American soldiers who were present at the time later described the scene as surreal. One of them admitted, "I have seen men go to their deaths before. Most beg for their lives. Some cry. But Saddam? He walked as if he was heading to a meeting, not to his own execution. His unwavering confidence, his lack of fear, it was something that even his enemies found hard to comprehend. As he was led into the execution chamber, a small group of witnesses had already gathered. Iraqi officials, military personnel, and a few select individuals were present to see the moment. Some in the room despised him. Others remained silent. But everyone felt the weight of the moment. As he stood beneath the noose, a masked executioner prepared the rope. The officials read out the charges against him, the crimes for which he had been sentenced to death. Saddam listened but did not respond. His expression remained unchanged. Then, someone asked him for his final words. His voice was firm, steady, and without hesitation. "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. La ilaha illa lillahu, Muhammadun Rasulullah." It was a declaration of faith, the Shahada, the fundamental belief of every Muslim. Even as the noose was placed around his neck, he continued to whisper the words. Those who witnessed the moment said that his voice did not shake. There was no panic, no desperation, only certainty. Why did the American soldiers cry? Among those present, some were shocked, others were moved. But the most unexpected reaction came from the American soldiers who had guarded him. One soldier, who had been assigned to watch over Saddam during his final days, later admitted, "I was trained to see him as a monster. But in his final moments, I didn't see a monster. I saw a man, a man who believed in something so strongly that even death couldn't shake him. Another soldier confessed, "I didn't agree with him. I didn't support what he did. But when I saw him walk to his execution with such courage, I couldn't help but feel something. I don't know if it was respect, but it was something I didn't expect to feel." For years, the media had painted Saddam Hussein as a brutal dictator. And yet, in those final moments, even those who had captured him couldn't ignore the strength he displayed. Was it defiance? Was it faith? Or was it simply a man accepting his fate? No one could say for sure. But one thing was clear. His final moments left an impression on those who were there. After his execution, his body was taken away quickly. The news spread across the world within hours. Some celebrated, others mourned. But in the end, what remained was not just the story of his rule, not just the wars, the conflicts, or the controversies. What remained was the image of a man who faced death without fear. A man whose final words were not of regret, nor of apology, but of faith. And even those who opposed him could not ignore the impact of that moment. What does this mean for history? Saddam Hussein's execution marked the end of an era. But did it truly bring justice? Some argue that his removal made Iraq more unstable, that it led to more chaos, more division, more suffering. Others believe he deserved his fate, that his actions as a leader had brought pain to many, and justice had finally been served. But regardless of where you stand, one fact remains. His final moments told a different story. A story that even his enemies could not ignore. And as history looks back, one question still lingers. Was it the fall of a tyrant, or the departure of a man who never lost his belief? Saddam Hussein's execution was not just an event, it was a moment that shook the world. His death was meant to bring closure, to mark the end of an era. But did it really? For some, his execution symbolized justice. A dictator had been punished. For others, it was a turning point that led Iraq into deeper chaos. The streets of Baghdad were divided. Some celebrated, some mourned. The news channels broadcasted the execution over and over again, showing the final moments of a man who once ruled with absolute authority. But one of the most unexpected reactions came from the American soldiers who had guarded him. Many of them had been trained to see Saddam as an enemy. But in those final hours, they saw something else. A man facing his fate with unshakable resolve. One soldier later said, "I had never seen anyone so calm before their death. He didn't beg. He didn't panic. He just accepted it. And that made me question everything I had believed about him." Another soldier, who had spent months guarding him, admitted, "We thought we were delivering justice. But that night, it felt like we were witnessing something much bigger than ourselves." Even those who despised him could not deny the way he left this world. The reaction to Saddam's death in the Middle East was mixed. In Iraq, the country was divided. Some people saw his execution as a long overdue punishment. They believed his rule had caused suffering, and his death was necessary. But for others, especially those who had once supported him, it was a moment of deep sadness. They didn't see Saddam as just a leader. They saw him as a protector of Iraq. For years, Saddam had portrayed himself as a defender of Arab unity, a leader who stood against Western interference. His supporters saw him as the last strongman of the Middle East, someone who had resisted foreign control. And in their eyes, his execution was not justice, it was humiliation. Protests erupted in some parts of the Arab world. People carried his photos, chanting his name. In some cities, his supporters wept openly. They believed his death was not just the fall of a man, but the fall of an entire ideology, one that resisted Western domination. One Iraqi citizen was quoted saying, "We lost more than a leader. We lost the last symbol of Arab strength." Even in countries like Jordan, Yemen, and Egypt, people reacted with shock. Some political analysts claimed that Saddam's execution would only create more instability in the region, and they were right. Did Saddam's death bring peace? In the years following his death, Iraq faced more challenges than ever before. Instead of stability, the country plunged into deeper chaos. The war did not end. The violence did not stop. And in many ways, the country became more divided than it had ever been. Many Iraqis started to ask themselves, was Iraq better with Saddam? It was a question that no one dared to ask before. But as the years passed, more and more people began to wonder if his rule, despite its brutality, had at least kept the country together. One Iraqi citizen later said in an interview, "I was against Saddam. I wanted him gone. But now, after seeing what has happened to my country, I don't know if it was worth it." And that was the biggest irony of all. The man who was executed to bring peace left behind a country that would never find it. After his execution, Saddam's body was taken to his hometown, Al-Auja, near Tikrit. It was a small village, far from the noise of Baghdad. His burial was quick, done before sunrise. Only close relatives and a few supporters were present. There were no grand ceremonies, no national mourning. But even in death, Saddam's presence could not be erased. His grave became a symbol for those who still believed in him. People secretly visited, leaving flowers, reading prayers. Some even whispered, "He will return." Over time, his tomb became a place of quiet resistance, a reminder that, despite everything, his legacy had not been completely destroyed. The mystery of the American soldier's tears. But now, let's return to the most mysterious part of this story. Why did some American soldiers cry when Saddam Hussein was executed? These were men trained to fight him, trained to see him as the enemy. And yet, on the night of his execution, some of them felt something unexpected: respect. It wasn't because they supported him. It wasn't because they agreed with what he had done. It was because, in that moment, they saw something they didn't expect. They saw a man who walked to his death with absolute certainty. A man who did not fear what was coming. A man who, even in his final breath, held on to his faith. One soldier, years later, confessed in an interview, "I didn't cry because I liked him. I cried because for the first time, I questioned if we were truly the heroes in this story." Another soldier said, "We were supposed to break him. But in the end, he was stronger than all of us." These statements reveal something important. Sometimes, even in death, a person's presence can leave an impact, even on those who were supposed to hate him. What can we learn from Saddam's final moments? Saddam Hussein's life was filled with controversy. Some called him a dictator. Others called him a patriot. But no matter which side you stand on, one thing is undeniable. His final moments were extraordinary. He faced death with dignity. He recited the Shahada as the rope tightened around his neck. And even those who were there to witness his execution could not ignore the strength he showed. His story is a reminder that, in the end, power fades. Kingdoms rise and fall, leaders come and go. But what truly matters is how we choose to face our final moments. Will we face them with regret or with faith? Will we beg for more time, or will we accept our fate with courage? Saddam Hussein's final words were simple, yet powerful. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Even in death, his belief remained unshaken. And maybe that is why some of his enemies, the very men who guarded him, could not help but shed tears. Now I want to leave you with a question. Do you think Saddam Hussein's execution was justice? Or was it something else? Was it the fall of a tyrant? Or the departure of a man who stood firm in his last moments? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video made you think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories from history. Until next time, peace be upon you. Peace be.